dark. That is not necessarily the official name of it, but it's kind of the little term I use when I am going late into the night. It's 10:44. I'm playing catch up. There were episodes that I wanted to get done today that I didn't get the chance to get done today, so I'm doing them now. I have to be honest though, guys, I am dragging ass. So forgive me if I am slightly low energy on this particular video, but I'm going to get through this video because I want to get through this video before tonight's over with. And I have to be honest, there's even another one after this that I want to get to. So, by the way, before I continue into this, it's a really good interview with Elizabeth Warren. Fascinating interview with Elizabeth Warren that starts off going in one direction and ends up in a different direction, with Elizabeth Warren seeming like is trying to take control of the direction of the interview in order to guard against further inspection into her point of view, if I'm saying that right. Dealing with campaign finance. It's fascinating the way it took place, and I'll show the video. But before I start on that, shout out to my wife. I want to send a shout out to Miss Thomas. Miss Thomas is not feeling well right now, so Miss Thomas is in bed. But she's been helping me with the patron appreciation episodes, which is essentially a weekend review at the end of the week on Sundays, on 1 p.m. on Sundays, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sundays. Those shows have been extraordinarily good, particularly with her on it. The audience seems to like her on it. I tend to like her on it, and I think it works well to have this kind of duo back and forth discussing the issues that are available. Not to mention she helps with reading the comments and everything else. So those episodes tend to be really, really good. So join us 1 p.m. On Sundays. Also, at the end of that episode gets private only to the patrons themselves, but anybody can see it live. So let's get to Elizabeth Warren. TYT, one of the things that I think TYT is right on is this thing of campaign finance laws. Meaning, you have so much money sloshing around in your political system that the interests of the population itself, meaning the overwhelming majority of the population, the interest of that population gets pushed to the side in lieu of small special interests that has outsized influence in our political space because of the money and influence that the money buys of politicians. Politician has to first get elected. 90% of the wins by politicians are from the side of the most cash, which means that the major element in their political campaigns is cash. I mean, think about it for the moment. If 90% of the races that are won by the side with the most cash, for all intents and purposes, elections are just being bought. Whatever the mechanics that take place, this guy's running in this race and everything else, the macro look at this is, it looks like your elections are being bought. The breathtakingly overwhelming amount of the elections that are won by the side with the most cash. So the politician, being sane and rational, looks at this and says, I need to get more cash. Not, I need to deal more with my constituents. I need to get more cash. It is the cash that allows me to get elected, but that's also the level of influence by people with the cash. Meaning, if you're one of those people who are with the cash, and when you call one of your politicians, he'll pick up the phone, that is an outside influence in the affairs of state through private interests based on the money that's being donated to the political campaigns. Betsy DeVos had no experience at all to be put in that position. She got put in that position because the Republican Party was given, hundreds of thousands of dollars, nearly $250,000. She's a billionaire, after all. And what do you know? If you have a bunch of money, you can get on a public thing, dealing with charter schools. I guess my point is this. I think they're right on this point. Money is a corrosive element to politics, especially if you want a situation where the politicians themselves seek out the best interests of the public and there's not an inherent corrupting incentive in the behavior that they take when they're in office. So the thought is, if you get money out of politics, then at the very least, that incentive goes away. That corrupting incentive goes away. Whether that's right or wrong, I do agree that the corrupting influence of cash is a problem in our political affairs, and it needs to be removed. And it's going to be difficult to get anything else accomplished while that's a corrosive element exists. Bernie Sanders, as you know, is not taking any money from super PACs, and he is only taking essentially donations. People send him donations. And it's just regular human beings sending him those donations. That's his thing. Everybody knows it. $27 and all this other good stuff. Elizabeth Warren is on the show saying she's opening a new campaign finance pledge. Now, as she's talking about this campaign finance pledge, listen very carefully to the words that she's using and listen to the surprise on Cenk Uygur's voice about 9 minutes in, with Anna trying to clean this up. And it's not necessarily working. The interview starts off, meaning up until the 9th minute, it sounds like Elizabeth Warren is saying something completely different. It's like she's saying one thing. This is my campaign finance pledge. I'm not going to take money, small dollar donations, etc., etc., etc. Cenk Uygur loves it. He's like, yes, I love it, I love it, I love it. I love that you're going to do that. But by 9 minutes in, the script flips. And he asks her a question, and she comes clean and says, oh, no, this is just for the primaries. In the general election, all options are on the table. Rob Illinois sent me this clip because Rob was like, dude, you have to do a video on this because she's effectively saying that, no, she's going to pivot when she gets to the general election and go back to, standard practice. And for some of us, especially people who are supporting Sanders, one of the things we like about Sanders is Sanders is not doing that. It's not all options on the table. The door that Sanders wants to walk through is proving that it's possible to win the presidency cleanly. In a clean way. Oh, one more thing. Elizabeth Warren does another awesome thing in this clip. She talks about the dirty underbelly of politics, meaning the greed and the way the politicians are bought and paid for using cash in order to do that. So let's take a look at the video. It's enough of me telling you about it. Let's get to the goods.
So joining us is Senator Warren, who is running for president. She's got a new policy proposal out. It applies to herself. She's not going to do any more private fundraisers or one-on-one meeting with big donors, and she also won't be doing call time. So that is a bold proposal. We have a perspective here on the Young Turks, and my perspective is I like it. So I want to be clear about that. Now, Senator Warren, I did want to ask you some details. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
So as a matter of context, what percentage of your donations used to come from that category as opposed to small donors that you might raise online, for example?
It's a good question. And to tell you the truth, I haven't looked at the numbers on this. I know that I've raised a lot of money from large donors, but I've raised a lot more money from small donors. It's been apart from the very beginning of how the campaign, when I first ran for the Senate back in 2012, was really about people all over Massachusetts and all over the country who just said, count me in, $5 here and $25 there. And that's how you built it. But part of doing that is everybody goes out and spends time with the rich and the well-connected. And this is not the kind of campaign I want to run for president. We're in a prime.
One thing I want to point out, right here, look at the banner, born to refuse fundraising from events with big donors. Good for you. Let's keep going.
Primary. And a primary gives us a moment. We're just running against other Democrats at this point. So think about what we can do. We can actually walk the walk here. We can say that what we want to do in a primary is build the grassroots foundation of how we're going to run in the general election and how we're going to make real change after we win. So we have this opportunity to do it face to face, person to person, neighbor to neighbor, all over this country.
Okay, Senator Warren, I just
spend all your time with rich people.
Right, and so of course the reason that other Democrats give for doing that, and it's understandable. And again, you did it in the past, and so I get why they say they need to do it. I don't agree with it. I like your new proposal a lot. It makes people able to trust you more. But they say, hey, look, it's you got to be able to raise money from these folks. Otherwise, we're not going to be competitive. So when you did it in the past, I just asked you about what percentage of your donations came, but also I'm curious, what percentage of your time went into those kind of fundraisers and those calls?
And that's the problem. It is about time. So look, I understand in a general election, I didn't have a deeply competitive primary. I was in a general election. I was up against Republicans. I was up against a Republican who started out on the first day I declared, already had $10 million in the bank. And I understand how all of us, you got to be in these races. I do not believe in unilateral disarmament. But the estimates I've seen is that across the board, folks who are running for federal office are spending somewhere around 70% of their time on big donor contact, calling wealthy people, asking them for money, showing up at fancy cocktail receptions to hang out with wealthy people so they'll give.
Think of what she's saying here. Like, this should be mind-blowing. Spending 70% of your time calling and begging for money from people who are essentially fantastically wealthy. And in the time that you're spending begging for money like that, what percentage of your time is spent looking at legislation? What percentage of your time is talking to constituents? If you're spending that much of your time begging for money, even this cocktail thing, going and meeting rich people, this is schmoozing. This is giving you, meaning the people who are around you and your world at that point is shaped by the people who are in the room with you. And those people in the room with you are not the average person who's out in the public trying to make ends meet. It gives them a fundamentally different view of the world because the people in their world are fantastically wealthy. They don't have people who are cutting their insulin supply. They don't have people who are missing meals. They don't have people who are living in neighborhoods that they don't particularly want to live in. No. They have complete agency in regards to what they want to do with their life and their affairs. And the people who they're talking to also have that degree of agency. And those people that they're talking to, who they're begging for money, get influence. They get influence. She's exposing the seedy underbelly of American politics.
Money, going to private dinners in mansions. And that's time you're not spending with the people who really are going to drive not just the presidential in 2020, not just Congress, but all of the races up and down the ballot who are going to drive those races and who are going to give us the wind in the sails to make the changes we need to make. So go ahead.
Yeah, Senator Warren, I'm just going to follow up one more time though. So you said other people spend up to 70% of their time on that, and I've reported that as.
Okay, I'm going to move this forward because I want to get further along in this conversation. But you get the gist of it. Elizabeth Warren is going to refuse fundraising events with big donors. This is her pitch of saying, we need to do some about campaign finance laws, and if and when I get elected as president, I'm going to change the campaign finance laws to essentially get big money out of politics. That was her point. Cenk Uygur is listening to her and saying, yes, I like this. I love this proposal. I want to get big money out of politics too, and I love the fact that you're running this race without money in politics. Let's fast forward though, because if you're just looking at it up to this point, it feels like she's talking about, in general, like she's running the presidential primary without accepting big money for big donors and that type of stuff. But that's not really it. Let's fast forward to 9 minutes in. Meaning they're talking for a while. Let's see where she is on this point.
Understand. There's an incredible sense of entitlement associated with that. A sense that Democrats and Republicans, that I was willing to take on really powerful interests on Wall Street, and that I wasn't going to back down around this. It was all pretty established. So the way it worked out for me, like I said, I was really blessed. A lot of small donors got in early on and made it clear that this was going to be a viable campaign.
What's taking place here is Elizabeth Warren is trying to get a very specific message across to the audience. She has a problem. Ultimately, she knows that in the primary that she's competing against people, or Sanders, or people who said we're not taking corporate PAC money. And she knows she's competing with Sanders, who's essentially said, I don't want to have anything to do with that stuff. I'm just going to get money from my donors. I mean, human beings, small dollar donations. With a primary that's primed for that, she needs to inoculate herself to some degree if she's going to decide to take any of this money. Meaning, if she says, okay, this was just a primary, I'm going to take this money in general at this point, well, she needs to inoculate herself. She's explaining the seedy underbelly and what people do in order to kind of get from point A to point B, but she's also making this case simultaneously. Even though I'm explaining this doesn't really apply to me because everybody knew exactly how I was before I got into office. Meaning, I was somewhat of a fixed item. So if anybody was talking to me, they're talking to me knowing that I'm a fixed item. Also, with the secondary argument of, yes, people spend up to 70% of their time, but I didn't spend up to 70% of my time because I had small dollar donations and I didn't need to do that. That's the basic argument that's being met. Yes, people do it, but I'm not those people. I want to fast forward, though. Let's fast forward to this part.
That's how I see this. That's what I see is going on here.
So, and I want the audience to understand it. So when Marco Rubio says, hey, look, the donors just signed up for what I already believe, it's a little comedic because he believes in giving almost everything to his donors. So when they sign up for you, well, that's a different equation. Right?
So some of them, it's not exactly, I sometimes will be in a room full of people and I say, give me a chance and I'm going to raise your taxes.
Right. But I want to.
Not quite your standard sales pitch.
Yeah, no, that's not a normal political pitch. But I wanted to ask you, you mentioned earlier that you don't believe in unilateral disarmament. So does this only apply in the primaries or will you carry this over to the general election or any other election you'll have going forward?
So this is for primaries. Look, I do not believe in unilateral disarmament. We need to win. We need to win in 2020. And when we hit 2020 and we're in a race against Donald Trump, when we're in a race for control of the Senate and control of the House and in control of the state houses and the governor's mansions, in all of those, the Republicans are going to be bringing a lot of money, a lot of power, a lot of dark money, a lot of super PACs, all to the fight. We play by the same rules. And in that one, I say we got to be all in because we have to beat the Republicans. But here's my key point.
What does all in mean? Like, does that mean accepting PAC money? Does that mean, doing with super PACs and those type of things? I mean, clearly it means big donors. Clearly means big ticket dinners and everything else. It sounds like all options on the table at the point where you get past the primaries. It's a pivot. It's a severe pivot. Shout out to Uygur for asking the follow-up question on that one. Because it's this entire interview, I don't want to say she's rambling, but it feels like she's filling the conversation in order to not talk about certain things. Meaning this is somewhat of a it's understood that if you ask the follow-up question of, is this only for the primaries, that it looks bad to say, yes, it's just for the primaries. By the time I get to the general election, I'm just going to pivot. At least it looks bad for the audience to which she's trying to reach. Let her finish this because Anna is going to do a follow-up. Now, Anna is trying to clean this up because as I watched this video, I thought, oh, wow, Elizabeth Warren is changing her policy with regards to campaign finance. And then when she hits that point of saying, oh, all options on the table, it's like, what? What just happened? What just happened? What? It's like the script just completely flipped. Let's let her do her thing because this video is going a little bit longer than I want. Let's let her finish this last part because I want Anna to chime in because Anna is trying to make that last pitch of, well, wait a minute, do you really need to do this for the general? If you're going to take this policy for the primaries, why can't you take this policy into the general election itself? Let's hear.
We're in a primary, a Democratic primary. We got a whole year ahead of us in this. We have a chance in this primary to do something extraordinary and to show how it works. Think of it like this. Once you get to the general, yeah, everybody's going to be out. There's going to be a lot of money, a lot of fighting. Everybody's positions will be well known. But right now, and in the primary, we have a chance to build something special. We have a chance to build something that is a rock solid foundation. It's the part that says, I'm in for $20. go to elizabethwarren.com and say, I believe this is how we should finance campaigns. I believe that this is how it should work. It's about our principles. It's about our priorities. It's about ideas. And we're going to build that rock solid foundation in the primary. And when we do that, we not only will have something the Republicans sure as heck are not going to have. So when it gets down to what we do in the general and their TV ads going back and forth, we're still going to have our foundation. And now,
the script has just literally flipped. This interview, when it first started off, came across as if Warren was making the kind of campaign pledge. From this point on, it is very clear that that's not what's taking place at all. All of this is purely just for the primaries. All of this talk of building this kind of grassroots network and everything else, that sounds great, but it's almost, it's like, yeah, you can show how I work in the primaries, but, this is, if it's only for the primaries, I guess it's nice to have it for the standpoint of a general election, but you've just said all options are on the table. The Republicans don't need to build something like this. The Republicans just want to win. I guess the objective is to show that it can be done. I mean, but from her standpoint, her objective is, I need to inoculate myself from Bernie Sanders, who's essentially outflanked me on the left on this very particular issue. And I need to tell people that I'm not bought. And that's essentially where she goes from here. I'm not bought. Nobody's buying me. I'm not being bought.
And are you at all concerned though that if you pivot toward accepting money from big donors, that would turn some of the I want to say progressives, but it's not just progressives who want to see the abandonment of big donors. Most voters are concerned about this issue. Are you at all worried that they would stay home during the general election if you pivot toward accepting that money?
Look, I think that what we've got right now is we got to show what we can build. Person to person to person to person across this country. I think we've got to show what we can build through.
I suppose that's a no. Are you concerned that people aren't going to come out to vote? Well, I think we need to show what we can build. What? This interview was fascinating to me. I was stunned by the reveal, if that makes sense. And I think Uygur was even blindsided by this. I think when Uygur was talking about this, Uygur probably had the same impression that I had at first. And then she said all options on the table. I was like, wait, when you said all options on the table, what does that mean? Does that mean you're going to accept the big donors and all this stuff? She says, yeah, all options on the table. I'm not going to unilaterally disarm. So, fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Hood Astro Queen. I hate colorful, I care infections, corporate politicians putting their voices. Ugh. Make it stop. Bernie or guillotine. I have some more reservations about Warren than she has in her family tree. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. It took me a moment to get that. And the more reservations that she has in her family tree, I was like, oh, reservations. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Pocahontas. I want to get me some Anna blow up doll. That's funny. But Anna is attractive, so I understand it, but that's kind of sexist. Salt Lakers. All options on the table mean they will have an even larger military budget than Trump next time, as long as they can get money from the military industrial complex. Yeah, man. Warren does not wear well under press, shows true colors. Crozet Isles. It sounded like she was trying to fill the conversation in order to direct the conversation to prevent them from asking those follow-up questions. That's what it sounded like. I could be completely wrong on this, but I don't think that's a good look. Like, when Uygur kept asking the question, like, well, wait a minute, does this apply for everybody? Her having to say, oh no, this is only for the primary, for some reason looks bad, and maybe it's my own specific vantage point from the left in this case of looks bad. But if the intention is to have this kind of grassroots effort where you're pulling money from the population itself and you're not necessarily accepting money from big donors and you're not doing stuff that people have been doing before because you want to show that this is not something that's necessary, you want to show people there are no strings on you, good for you. But if you say, yes, that's where we need to go, that's what we're supposed to be doing, but it's only for the primary, And the question becomes, well, why is it only for the primary? Now, Elizabeth Warren's argument will be, well, we need all options on the table because we need to win, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. I don't know if that one goes down too well. But, again, I could be wrong. I just know when she had to say that for whatever reason to me looked bad. It looked bad. Burning a guillotine. I can always gauge TYT's relative popularity at any given time as being inversely proportional to how tight Anna's clothing is during this. You think her clothes get more tight as the segment goes on? Social liberals let their wives dominate them. What? Let their wives dominate them? What are you talking about? What is a social liberal? Alright. I'm going to end this because it is getting late and I'm dead tired. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through PayPal or Patreon. God, I can't believe this video went 26 minutes. I gotta get better at speeding up on some of this stuff. But yeah, this was an interesting interview. And it's not that I'm against Warren on this. I like the fact that Warren is willing to do this in the primary. But again, I suspect this is more to do with trying to inoculate herself from Sanders. If other people in the primary were taking money, she'd take money herself. It's not something that digs in her. It's something more so that's being done for political reasons. But something that she doesn't believe that she can do in the general, meaning she feels that she needs to take all the money, which case, she's getting the public knows, like, yes, I like this grassroots effort stuff, and I want to do the grassroots effort stuff, and I'm going to put out this policy talking about grassroots fundraising, but that's only for the primaries. That's only for the primaries. I'm taking cash when I get in the general, buddy. Taking cash when I get in the general. All right. Thanks, guys. You all have a good one. I will see you guys probably early in the morning. Yeah, I'll see you guys bright and early in the morning. Thanks all. And where's my... There it is.